Hi, this is Jonathan. Welcome to this month's Pulse. So in Automotive, this month I've been thinking about the article actually that the Drum published, and you have a link to it, around Tesla and Amazon and the changes in automotive. But more than just what's mentioned in the article, my feeling is essentially the kind of the opposite to what Mark Palmer from Auto Trader is quoted as inside the article, where he's basically saying that online stores like Amazon or whatever will principally just be used for research, and then you actually go to a dealer to purchase. I remember thinking that in the music industry, where it was like, no one's going to go and buy a guitar from Argos. What you're going to do is you're going to research there, then go to our independent stores, and you're actually going to buy your guitar from there after doing the research in the Argos catalogue. It doesn't happen. Really dangerous that Mark Palmer has said that from Auto Trader. I think that it could give the wrong impression of comfort into a trade where I think we need to be productively paranoid and actually be experimenting rapidly and thinking about what the next generations that are already here, the people that are born up to like mid 2000s, the people who are now just about to buy their first car, how they like to purchase. And for those, by the way, who are interested in those type of trends, I'm going to mention more about that in the retail portion of this Pulse. From an education perspective, I'm absolutely overjoyed that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have pledged $1.7 billion towards their education fund that goes for the next 5 years to schools, innovations in schools who are part of a collaborative network. And the Big Bets innovation is about 25% of that. And there's a huge amount of education research priority and usage of AI to make learning fun. It's excellent. It's just heartwarming. You have a link to it from the 74million.org. And I could not support it greater than I can. It's brilliant. From an entertainment perspective, I've been thinking a lot about Spotify. Over the years, their view of what to do with Spotify has differed so greatly from now that I now feel no allegiance to people that I tried to help in the past. Sadly, there's an article by Engadget, which is around their video side of things. Now, you might think Spotify video, but yeah, they've gone through quite a few heads of videos recently. The deal is that last year, Spotify made, from a revenue of $3.3 billion, they made a loss of $390 million. And that's because most of the business model is sucked up in the royalties and stuff. It's just the way that the industry works today. And the reason I've been looking at video is because the video side of things has an opportunity where you can actually push video at a less costly basis than broadening the music library, where the expense royalties are paid. And in fact, on the video side, you can, in theory, monetize through advertising more. So they're thinking, let's do more video so we can make more money from advertising. That is absolutely not the way to run a service at all in the entertainment space. If you start from what will make you more money from advertising, you will fail. And it's just a terrible thing to watch because there was so much hope. And we all tried. Anyway, in banking, financial services, I've been thinking around what Google have done with their payment API launching in Brazil. They've actually partnered with, and there's an article that you've got a link to from the eBanks page. They've partnered with eBanks, which they have an end-to-end commerce solution, an e-commerce payment solution. And the Google API will enable international merchants to sell to Latin American customers. And you've got to remember that in Brazil, which is a population of 208 million, even though e-commerce currently makes up 3% of retail sales, it's expected to grow and triple or quadruple in the next year and then hit 19 billion by 2019. But the key is that 86% of the country's smartphones are Android operated. And nearly 80% of the population has a payment card. So there's actually a strong addressable audience here on a track that's just about to go through the roof. In fashion, and you have a link to a Business Insider article about Nike saying that it will favor rather than their 30,000 retail partners, they're actually just going to favour 40 of them moving forward. And these are ones that they will be able to control. And you know what, let's be honest, Nike's just come off the back of its most sluggish quarter since 2010. And, you know, a lot of that is down to the accountability of the retail partners. And I think they're hoping that if we focus on these 40, then we can, you know, build a unique retail experience and improve the sales and everything else like that. And, you know, e-commerce is going to make 30% of Nike's revenue by 2022, according to Business Insider, and that's up from 15% today. But I think that the challenges that Nike have aren't based necessarily just on the underperforming 30,000 retail partners. I think there's also an entire piece in the competition mindset from companies that aren't necessarily thinking about things from a fashion perspective, but are thinking about things from a collected, interconnected perspective, such as Under Armour and Nike. So just saying. From the food side of things, I've been looking at what Kimball Musk has been doing. Kimball is the brother of Elon, and whilst Elon is doing stuff in the saving the world space, Kimball is doing it in the saving the food part of saving the world space. And there's an article in the Independent you got a link to, which shows what Kimball is doing for nourishing the body, nourishing the farmer, nourishing the planet. The backstory about Kimball that I'm quite interested in is that in 2010 he was on a skiing trip and slid down a hill and actually I think he was in an inner tube and broke his neck. He was temporarily paralyzed, and during the 2 months that he had to lie flat on his back, it was during that time that he realized that he was going to actually devote himself to food. He quit his wife, he quit his tech company, and he dedicated himself to changing the way that Americans eat. So I'm hoping that what he does and activities like his can spread throughout the world wider. In terms of a healthcare perspective, there's an article from City AM that you have a link to, which links to 3 startups that Pfizer has been looking to work with to tackle the pressing health issues that the NHS have in the UK. And it's a 12-month program, and the tech companies, one of which used to be inside Wire Academy, where I was mentoring, they're looking in different ways to address this. And you should read the article, it's quite amazing. But the thing that I also feel is that the NHS itself is a sick patient. We have an operating model issue there as well, and we have people working way more than is healthy to help people become more healthy. And in fact, there are larger issues at play here, but I'm hoping that at least these startups can go some way towards fixing what is much needed to be fixed. From a manufacturing perspective, there's an article by Financial Express. I need to be careful what I say here. You've got a link to it, but I mean, it starts talking about Industry 4.0, which of course in the manufacturing side of things is kind of becoming quite a hyped term. But actually what the article is about is around whether or not India can be positioned as a manufacturing growth area, the Make in India mission. And the reason why I have to be quite careful about this is because we have to be, in any industry, and manufacturing just as any others, we have to be very certain that we don't seek innovation just from attaching ourselves to new technologies. We have to see that the business world and the solutions world and the consumer world and the public world is still based on the tenets of quality and assurance and the security inside that and the trust inside that you can't just get from appointing new buzzwords or taking new concepts and just saying, yeah, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. What we actually require is, across any industry vertical, across any country, we actually require fundamentals here, fundamental principles, not just the buzzwords. We actually require things to be built properly, to be built honestly, and to be delivered trustworthily. That's the very stark difference between attaching onto a bandwagon and as the article is I believe linking to potentials that, of course, looks like a yes, but actually in the cold light of day may not necessarily be a yes. From a retail perspective, this I mentioned actually in the automotive piece earlier, but the retail side is my view this month. The nearest to my view is coming from the Business Insider article about Generation Z, and of course the Generation Z audience, if you like, or the demographics is from like mid-90s to 2000s, and it's an interesting article in Business Insider because it shows the stats that you and I already knew existed, but it's stark, like as in every single one of the new type of ways of doing things with our funky pieces of metal and plastic are far more adopted by Generation Z. But the question is what are companies actually going to do about that now? Not in 10 years' time or 20 years' time, but now at the moment when, in fact, these are the people who are starting university, they're opening their proper bank accounts, they're buying their cars. And in fact, we as companies should, and people inside companies should look at, from a retail perspective, should look at what our retail offerings are and score them against the charts that you see inside the Business Insider article that I've linked to, and see where the delta is, where we're missing out. From a tech perspective, I'm absolutely enamored by the Amazon Key, of which you have a link to. I think the Amazon Key, I'm not quite sure whether or not I'm okay with the fact that, Amazon's new Cloud Cam and a compatible smart lock can enable a courier to come into your house while you're not there and deliver your package. But it's okay because, it's all linked to whether or not they've got the correct authorization with their app and stuff. Would I put a smart camera and a smart lock to enable a courier just to arrive who had the right credentials? Maybe, but only maybe to a separate room from the rest of the house. I'm not trying to be a Luddite here, but it's quite a modern concept, and I'm not certain how I feel about it just yet. But check it out anyway, Amazon Key. From a telco perspective, I was enamored by the move by the European Telecommunications Network Operators Association, otherwise called ETNO. And I need to be slightly careful what I say here because so what they've done basically is the CEOs of over 30 European telcos have accused the European Union of damaging the investment climate in telcos, in telecoms, by undermining incentives for networks improvements. So saying, you're making it hard for us to innovate, therefore we can't innovate as much. No, the reason why you haven't innovated as much was actually a mindset from many, many, many years ago with absolute resistance to change anything and to reside in comfort zones. That's the reason. It's not because of what the European Union are incentivizing or not, let's be honest about it. We have to be quite careful not to try and pass the buck here and shift accountability from what I know firsthand and secondhand and third hand was actually a massive general resistance to do anything innovative and hope that we'd be able to milk the cow forever. Those days are gone, and in fact I think it's still going to be about the mindset of how we can innovate moving forward rather than whether the European Union are incentivizing or not. In terms of travel, you may obviously, let's say you're looking at this in kind of November 2017. It wasn't that long ago from when there was a US laptop ban around July 2017, and that's for US-bound travellers leaving 10 airports in the Middle East and North Africa. Required any electronics larger than this to be placed into checked bags. Now, last week or a few weeks ago, back in October 2017, the Federal Aviation Administration weighed in and said that actually here's a new safety standards set. We're concerned about lithium-ion batteries, and we think that actually, this is the FAA said that we don't actually think that passengers should pack large electronic devices in check bags either. So actually, so actually not to check the bags in And actually, there's even a mention in some areas to not allow people to travel with those large electronic devices at all. Now, don't want to panic you, but you can look up this. There's a link to the Skift article. But there's no ban in place yet. But and who knows whether the FAA regulation, the suggestion will be enforced. But I'm really concerned that this is going to fundamentally change business travel, at least, if not personal travel as well. And I'm starting to work out my options as to what happens if I can't actually travel with anything other than this, which is fine. It's first world problems, but how does that shift the business world? Are we looking for an Uber for tablets or something, which of course exists? The temporary rental of things. If you stay in the right hotels in the world, by the way, you actually get them. You get them free of charge whilst you're staying. But anyway. Those are the things I'm looking at this month, and I look forward to seeing you right here next month for the next Pulse. And as ever, if you do have any feedback, please do return that by just emailing a reply. This service is something you can use. You can use this. You can use Pulse Insight in your boardroom meetings. You can use it in your innovation workshops. You can use it in your discussions with colleagues. Essentially, this is making Insight useful for you, and I hope you enjoy watching it and reading these things as much as I enjoy producing it. And I'm here to serve, and serve I will, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye.